All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week. We're looking at Chapter 5, talking about proportions, and that information is very helpful, especially when we get to our graphing. So let's go ahead and start off with lesson 5.2. So scrolling to 5.2, proportions. I got some information here. Again, scan through that. Proportion. Again, we are looking for essentially what are equivalent fractions. And you've dealt with fractions from elementary school, 7th grade. You'll still be dealing with it 8th grade and high school. So being able to look at our proportions to be able to see if they're equivalent fractions, we learned a few ways to be able to actually do that. One of the best ways was to commonly think about your least common denominator. So for example, if you can get them to have the same denominator, can they actually become the exact same numerator as well? And that would be an equivalent fraction. So it looks like what they did here is they actually reduced it instead of putting it into a common denominator. So that's also another way. And it says 3 over 2 is not equivalent to 2/3, so not a proportion. You could have a data table here where you're having your x and your y. It's saying your x divided by your y. I'm actually going to go ahead and change that around a little bit in preparation for when we get to our slope, because our slope is y divided by x, because remember, it's the rise over run idea. And a lot of 8th graders, when they do their data tables like this, they forget to put the y as the numerator, and then they get things incorrect. So if we can practice that now, it'll make things just a little bit easier. So I'm going to change it up just a little bit from what they do here. But the idea is to look at each individual comparison and see if they could all come out to equivalent fractions. All right, so we'll do some problems together right there, just like what we saw. And our cross products, we're actually going to save that for our next lesson, so we're not going to worry about that too much right there. All right, so, and then you got quick assignments, just some odd problems again, very similar to exactly what you have here. When you get down to the word problems, remember, it's just making a fraction, 7 inches and 9 hours, so that'd be 7 over 9, 42 inches and 54 hours, that'd be 42 over 54. And again, try and reduce it or get them into having the common denominator. All right, let's go ahead and try just a few problems from lesson 5.2. All right, tell whether the ratios form a proportion. So what I see here on question number 1 is that a 2 can easily change into a 10. So my 1/2, if I multiply, I can get a denominator of 10. So obviously multiply it by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 over 10 and 5 over 10 match up, so therefore this is a proportional. Now we're not going to say yes or no. We're going to say proportional. Look at it right there. Proportional. Or you could write out a sentence, the fractions, the ratios form a proportion. Proportional, a little bit easier for students though. All right, so you can always increase or trying to change your smaller denominator into your larger denominator. Let me go ahead and try the other way on problem 2, where I'm going to go ahead and see if the 24 can change into a 6. And if that will also change into a 4. So let's see. I've got 24 divided by something, and that is going to give me a 6. So we know 24 divided by 4 is a 6, right? And I'm hoping to get a 4 here at the numerator, because again, that's what the other fraction is. Now, if I divide by 4 at my denominator, I have to divide by 4 with my numerator. Now, 18 divided by 4, does that give me 4? No, so this is not a proportion. Or you could say not proportional. So again, it doesn't matter which way you do it. You can try and get them smaller to larger, larger to smaller. And again, we're talking about our denominators. So 10/3, change it into something over 6. So if I want to change a 3 into a denominator of a 6, obviously I have to multiply by 2. 10 multiplied by 2, because remember you have to do the exact same thing for numerator and denominator, gives me a 20. 20 over 6 is not the same thing as 5 over 6. So therefore, 5 over 6 and 20 over 6, not proportional. And again, I want to make sure that you understand that this slash out equal sign is not referring to this work over here. It's talking about the 5 over 6 and 20 over 6. So maybe I could just change that up a little bit. All right, now this one here, this one I can't have them change the 20 to 12 or 12 into 20. So let's just go ahead and practice our separate fractions. So kind of like two problems here. And let's just go ahead and see what they can reduce to. So again, a 12 and 15 can both be divided by 3. So that's going to give me 5 over 4. Now I'm hoping this one will also give me a 5 over 4. Let's see, 25 divided by, well, they can both be divided by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Oh yeah, look at, they're the exact same. So therefore, these two ratios, are proportional. And proportional, again, means that it has an equivalent fraction. Now, with the graphing information, we'll talk about that a little bit later when it's proportional with a graph. But again, right now, just trying to get them into equivalent fractions. All right, so my suggestion here is to remember y over x, because that's like your rise over run. Man, my nose. The book suggested x over y. I'm suggesting y over x because that's going to help us on a lesson coming up and also help you in 8th grade. So essentially, I'm just going to look at each one and I'm going to say, okay, if it's y over x, that would be 12 over 1, 24 over 2. And if I reduce that, it does become a 12 over 1. So we're good so far because, again, we want to see if they could all become the same fraction, equivalent fractions. All right, this would be 48 divided by 4. And if you divide by 4, that does give you a 12 over 1. We're looking great so far. And the last one, 72 over 6, which also does give you a 12 over 1. Hey, so that means all 4 come out to equivalent fractions. So therefore, this scenario is proportional. All right, a little bit of information with fractions. Just do your best and send me any questions you may have, and we'll continue being awesome.